Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make another gift card holder. This time it's a corner double pocket holder, so it's got the corner pocket and inside there is another pocket where the gift card goes. Alternatively, if you wanted to give scratch offs, sometimes they're a little large, they would fit in here, or good old money of course. And the nice thing is, because we're doing this because it's Christmas, the design is easily adaptable to any occasion. So without further ado, let me get started and show you what we need. It starts with a piece of 6x6 paper. This is Iconic Celebration. And the piece for the front is going to be 5.5. That's the longest piece that we have. So what I'm going to do is I am going to cut off 1/2 inch from the bottom. And that is the piece that we're going to use to decorate the inside pocket. So turning it back around, what I needed to do was cut the piece for the front. And normally when we do that, we cut it by 2 and we have 4 inches left. However, the triangle on the inside is layered down and it's only 3 7/8. So rather than cut 2 inches off and then cut this piece down to 3 7/8 and have a little, 1/8 of an inch flapping around, I thought, well, let's cut it at 2 1/8 piece. So that is now the 2 1/8 piece that will go on the front of the card. And this piece is now 3 7/8, and we're going to cut it down to be 5 1/8 to layer on to the card. And again, we get another handy dandy little scrap piece that we can use to decorate the inside. So what we need to do next, that's our pieces of the 6x6 cut down. We need a piece of real red 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. So let me just give that a crease with the bone folder. We need a piece of Mossy Meadow, and this is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, which we're going to cut into 2 triangles. The white for the inside is the same size, 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. The pocket piece is 5.5 by 3 1/4, and it's scored at 1 1/4 and folds up to make the pocket. And then the front piece is 2.5 by 3 and 2 1/4 by 2 3/4. And the little pull tab was a 1 inch circle that I cut out. I mean, I cut this out. This Stampin' Up! Hole punch is so old, but I didn't need to, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I didn't need to update my hole punch to the newer shape. And there aren't that many punches around these days. They're all dies, I think. But anyway, when I cut it in half, I kept the half just because waste not, want not. So the last thing we need to do with the paper trimmer while it's on the table is take the Mossy Meadow piece, which again is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, and we need to cut it into 2 triangles. So I'm just going to line up a point in the paper trough, but I'm not going to come and cut into it, because if you cut into a point, you run the risk of scrunching it. So the trick to cut diagonals is to hold it in place and just start in the middle and then run out, and you get 2 nice, well, it's going to be this way, isn't it? 2 nice equal triangles. And again, with the piece of the Designer Series paper, which is 3 7/8 by 5 1/8, we will do the same thing. Point in the trough, opposite point in the trough, and then close the cutter down and push it in and cut out and out from where you punched it. Now, of course, the thing is, with this pattern, it doesn't matter because it doesn't have an orientation. This can go onto this corner. You have to be very careful, because if this had a pattern, you wouldn't be able to, I can't show you that one either because that's pretty generic-y. But if this had a pattern where everything was flowing up, if you turned it round, everything would be flowing down. It just works this time because this pattern is multi-directional. So that is the 2 pieces cut in half. And now we can get on to the funner assembling piece. So I'm going to make the pocket first. And what we need to do is bring in the silicone mat, because we're going to put just a slither of liquid glue or tear and tape, but it needs to be a strong adhesive to hold it together in the pocket form. So I'm just going from the score line to the bottom. Oops. And fold it up to make the pocket. See, there's the glue squidging out the sides, which is why we do it on the silicone mat, because we don't want it to get sticky all over the work surface. We don't particularly want it to get sticky on itself, so I was able to get that wiped off quickly. So that's the inside pocket. And then what we need to do is attach the other pocket to the inside of the card. Now it needs to be a pocket, so it's only going to have the glue on the two straight edges, not on this one. So again, I'm going to bring in my silicone mat, make sure I've got the right triangle, and then I'm going to put a little run of glue. Whoops. Oh my gosh. Down the two edges. I'm all over the place. Good grief. My gluing skills are falling apart. So I'll pop that off to one side. And the nice thing about the silicone mat is it just dries in place, and then you can just press it off. So I'm going to put this, the little 1/8 of an inch all around onto the corner, and that will hold it in place. Just get rid of that little bit of stickiness. So we'll leave that to dry for a moment, and then we'll do a little bit of the stamping. So glue drying process. So the front of the card I'm going to do with one of the stamps from the Hang and Ornament set. It does come with a die and it punches out, but in this instance, I'm just going to stamp it as is on a piece of cardstock. So I'm going to use the Mossy Meadow. And stamp it into the middle of the piece of cardstock. And just leave that out for a quick moment. And then I am going to put All Is Merry in Real Red into the middle of that. So there we go. So that's the front made, which will get attached to itself in just a moment. On the front of where the gift card is going to go, I'm going to actually use the other greeting out of that stamp set, which says "Just for You." So we'll pop that on there, and then we'll go into the middle of the card, and this says "Friends and family are the true gifts of Christmas." So pop that lovely sentiment on there, and then bring back in the Mossy Meadow and just put some of the coordinating leaves in the two corners. And then what we need to do for the little piece where you have to get the card out, the gift card out, ever so conveniently, this stamp set has a little baby stamp that says pull. So I've just, doesn't show up so much green on the red, but it's there. So that's all the stamping done. And then the last thing I wanted to do was, sometimes I feel if it's just white, it's very plain. So I'm going to bring in my quarter sponge again. This was a whole sponge that I just cut into quarters, because if you put ink on the flat side, you can control it more than a whole round sponge, and just get a little piece of colour on the sides just to give it a little bit of pizzazz. And then last but very not least, I'm going to bring in my Stampin' Blend, and I'm going to use the light smoky slate just so it gives the impression of being silver. So that is all the stamping taken care of. So assembling, we will put the front piece on the front. We will put the inside on the left hand side, because of course the gift card in its little corner pocket is on the right, but I still think it's nice if you've got a nice big sheet for greeting. And then I'm going to bring back in my silicone mat, which is nicely dried, and that glue will just rub off. I don't know how it does it. I'm not a scientist, but it does do it, and it just amazes me every time. It's fabulous. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this layer onto the Mossy Meadow triangle, and I'm going to do it on the silicone mat because we've got pointy triangle pieces and we don't want to get the sticky on the work surface. So we pop that on there. And then we can pop the front on. So I'm going to put the bold green section more to the left. Sometimes cutting cardstock and designer series paper, they land at different places in the trough, but this time it was successfully the same size. So what I want to do is build the jazziness of this first. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to put a little piece across like this and snip it. I mean, we know it should be 3 1/4, but if we snip it as is, we can then put adhesive on the back. Oh, let me put that actually on the silicone mat. So we've got a little piece of pattern on the front, and then we'll bring in a little piece for the bottom, just to give it a little bit of extra so it's not so plain and white. There we go. So that's the pocket built. And then last but not least, oh, having just put my silicone mat away, come back, all is forgiven. I'm going to put some adhesive on the little circle for pulling. And that can just go in the middle of this section. So that's the card more or less built. All we need to do is bring in some dimensionals to put this on the front, just to give it a little bit of extra. And peel the backing papers off real quickly. And pop that on the front. And then we'll steal the gift card out of this one, so it can go into the pocket and it can go into its inner pocket, and it's all ready to be sent to the lucky recipient. If you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing and ring the bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. Thumbs up are always appreciated. I thank you in advance for those. All the directions and dimensions will be on my blog as usual. Any questions or comments, feel free to pop those in the box below. And last but not least, thanks so much for watching.